Welcome back to Eric Von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods. The mysteries continue. At the end of the 20th century, we take the idea of human flight as a given. Our space shuttles head towards space so often few people even notice when they leave or when they return. And it all started with the Wright brothers 100 years ago. Or did it? The dream of flying has fueled our imagination for thousands of years. At the end of the 20th century, we're not only able to fly around the Earth, we're able to explore other planets and other solar systems. Is it possible that other intelligent beings shared our dream of exploration and visited the Earth in their own space vehicles? These illustrations were drawn from descriptions in the Hindu text of ancient India, dated to the 4th century BC. They describe what some scholars believe are giant vimanas, or flying machines. In Yugoslavia, images like these were found on a medieval fresco dated to around the 15th century. Are these the products of an artist's imagination, or are these the recordings of actual beings in flight?
The oldest scriptures of mankind, the ancient Egyptian pyramid texts, the Vedic texts of India, and many other ancient texts from all around the world make intriguing references to what sounds like flight, technological flight, not visionary, imaginary journeys in the sky, but journeys in machines.
Our search for clues about the flying machines of the ancient world takes us to southern Mexico. The ancient city of Palenque is one of the most magnificent of the Mayan culture, which flourished all across Central America for almost 600 years. This is the burial pyramid of Tikal, ruler of the Mayan world around 600 AD. Here we find what Eric Von Daniken believes are signs that the Mayans may have encountered visitors from the sky. Tikal's ornate sarcophagus is rendered in exquisite detail. The lid is a beautifully carved image of the dead king. Eric Von Daniken believes this relief might show Tikal in some kind of spaceship. Look closely. Tikal is seated in the reclined position like an astronaut in a space capsule. His hands seem to be gripping the controls, almost like an airplane pilot. His nose appears to be attached to a breathing apparatus. The design behind the seat could be a representation of flames like those from a rocket ship. Von Daniken travels to the jungles of Tabasco and points to what he believes is a clue that ancient astronauts have indeed visited this culture.
During this journey, I showed clues for an extraterrestrial visit in the past. But I have more. 60 years ago, a gigantic engraved stone was found in the jungle of Tabasco in Mexico. Now you see yourself. There is a flying being, to my view, an extraterrestrial floating down from the sky. His head has a helmet, and with a little imagination, one can even recognize a microphone on his lips. His two arms and hands are looking down, while on the contrary, his legs towards the sky. In this case, I definitely see an astronaut coming down from heaven to teach humanity.
If this were the only evidence we have of visits to the ancient world by beings who could fly, it'd be easy to say it's all just fantasy. But sometimes you have to look down to look up. Nazca, Peru, one of the great mysteries of the ancient world. From the ground, Nazca is an empty, endless desert. But from the air, the secret of Nazca is revealed. The desert is in fact a tapestry of elaborately carved lines and figures stretching for more than 100 miles. From the air, you can see the famous figures of the spider, the hummingbird, and the monkey. Without the ability to fly, experts don't know how the Nazcans gained the perspective needed to create such elaborate figures on such a huge scale. There's even disagreement about the purpose of these markings. Originally, they were thought to be calendar-related or astronomical guides. No one really knows. But there's more to Nazca than this ancient menagerie.
The real mystery in Nazca are lines, gigantic lines looking like airstrips, and small lines, long, kilometers long.
One of these lines extends 15 miles to the horizon. A giant mountaintop has been sheared off, leveled, and scraped clean to create an impressive runway-like avenue. The question is, why? Did the ancient Nazcans need runways for some kind of flying machines?
This is an amazing mystery. Orthodox history has it that the ancients could not fly, that they did not have the technology to fly. If the ancients did have the technology to fly, then the whole basis of our history is completely up the creek.
So if the Nazcans couldn't fly, what is the purpose of all these runway-like creations? Eric von Daniken thinks he has an answer. His theory? Spaceships landed and left marks on the desert floor. When they returned into the sky, the natives wanted them to come back. Generation after generation, they recreated these lines in tribal ritual, even though the initial visit may have fallen into their past. There is one more clue that the ancient Nazcans may have had a close encounter with extraterrestrials. The figure of El Astronato has watched the skies over Nazca for as many as 3,400 years. Could this strange-looking image be a greeting from a primitive but friendly society to airborne visitors? Only if and when extraterrestrials return to Nazca, Peru, will the mystery of these lines and figures finally be solved. If some kind of flying machine or Vimana did visit the Earth in ancient times, one can imagine the terror some people may have felt in their presence. In Turkey, the eerie landscape is dotted with hundreds of small caves in the soft volcanic rock. But the real mystery of this region can't be seen above ground. Perhaps 2,500 years ago, elaborate cities were carved deep under the earth. Were these intricate maze-like settlements a primitive air raid shelter to protect the citizens from airborne enemies?
There are caves and chambers all over.
One of these cities descends 130 feet underground through as many as 18 stories. This is just one of nearly 200 subterranean cities in the region. Perhaps 30,000 people once lived in them. A tunnel 5 miles long linked two cities together. Experts say the underground cities have been used for many different purposes over the last 2,500 years. Eric von Daniken wonders, why did generation after generation seek refuge beneath the earth? If fleeing an invading army or religious persecution, frightened citizens could have hid in the mountains above ground. Why did people burrow a labyrinth of subterranean chambers underground? What was the true purpose of these cities?
These people were hiding out, afraid of some enemy. But all this doesn't make sense. Any enemy could simply come in here, or they were sitting in a trap. It must have been an airborne enemy. An enemy from the sky.
Still ahead on Chariots of the Gods, the mysteries continue. Why did an ancient culture deform the heads of their children? Then, did extraterrestrials leave a message for us in the giant stones of France? Plus, Eric von Daniken investigates whether visitors from another world taught the ancient Egyptians the secrets of electricity.